Alright, here we are in the Lion of Egypt scenario. The beginning of the 6th turn means just 2 more turns. Now this is when the crusade would have arrived if it hadn't been cancelled, essentially, or diverted. And by putting that, you kind of might have thought, wow, they could have done a fantasy Fourth Crusade scenario, because that was a big crusade, and if it hadn't been shifted off to Constantinople, that would be an interesting one. Of course, also the Frederick scenario, which maybe these are going to come out in some magazine or something. That would be cool. I think the counters are available. Certainly for the Frederick the Second Crusade. What do we got? All right. Well, the Christians are kind of resurging with their taking of Aleppo and the area near that, and that's worth a significant amount of points. They just swung 5 points there. The Muslims tried to build up their forces. They're not taking too many more castles out of the way, although I think they'll take Ascalon down and improve this, unless they have something. Sure, they'd rather do this. They want to take Jaffa. They want to get it cleared out of the way. The Christians are upgrading Famagusta, working on getting Hugh back, because they can buy him on any turn, or maybe one of the units. But Hugh's pretty good. He's got 2 combat strength, can lead troops. Leaders are better than units. There's no question there. Are they better than 2 units or 2 steps? Probably. So buying leaders is usually worthwhile when you have that opportunity. But other than that, the Muslims have to deal with this issue too, just as a matter of pride, even if they can win the game without it. All right, well, we'll give it a shot. No cards to expend because there's no captured leaders. Edward managed to position himself and the Armenians all here between Antioch and Aleppo. Got an interception here at Chastel Rouge and was wiped out. And Edward's dead. These 2 leaders are captured. They won't be released because there's only 1 turn left. It's not worth ransoming them. They go into the force pool and don't come on the map immediately. That's pretty much it, I'd say, for the Crusaders' ability to ever do anything in this game. They can buy Edward back next turn. No, they won't have any Crusader resource points to buy him back. So they're without leaders, essentially. Hugh? Yeah, they could pull Hugh back. But other than that, there's really nothing they can do on the board. Meanwhile, the Muslims are pretty much free to do whatever they like, and whatever they like is going to be to take Antioch and Aleppo and maybe this area in here. They clearly have enough points. They're already at the 46, but I'll play it out just to see what the total is. And here we are at the end of the turn, moving into turn 7. Antioch, Latakia, Margat, those all fell. Points are now at 54 to 19 or something like that. Tortosa is being a hard nut to crack, as it was historically. It was quite a fortress. There's not a lot left otherwise for the Christians. The Armenians back here, well, maybe they could do something. The Mongols don't have any leadership. Aleppo was stripped, but I can put them back. That's just the Templars there. Most of their castles are disappearing. It's going to be tough to replenish anything, really. But that little thorn in the side at Jerusalem's still there. Alright, on to the last turn. Well, jumping into the final turn here in Lion of Egypt. It's really just a matter of going through the formalities, finishing it up. Christians, well, they laid down some Templars and Hugh down in Jerusalem with the hope of taking something back. Maybe Jerusalem itself. They placed them in Jaffa. They had to redeplete Famagusta to do that. But Hospitallers back in Aleppo to help defend that. Maybe that won't fall. Some Armenians up here. And of course the Mongols, but maybe they can take something too. But again, it just isn't going to matter. A couple castles falling isn't going to swing the overall value of what's going on. Plus, once Bybors comes up, takes Aleppo, he can go handle either the Mongols or sweep over and do something else. Probably can't make it down to Jerusalem without, impinging on his profitability, as it were. Tortosa fell to an assault. For the Christians, they played this mercenaries card that allowed them to resurrect a couple of units. They took the Jerusalem cavalry units. They think they're the best units that they can grab of strength 2 or less, which is what was required for that card. As we've proceeded, the Mongols have managed to sweep down using cavalry army and take Gaston. Now, this guy here, Gatavan, has been sort of sitting there. He could have intervened in the siege and maybe broken it, but I was so intent on Baybars winning the siege of Jaffa and playing cards for that. And then even that came down to a risky roll where the Muslims were actually attacking at a disadvantage, but they were out of cards to affect the siege. They took Jaffa, captured the army, destroying it, and captured good old Hugh as well. That's good news for them. They don't have many cards left, only 2 cards left to come up and try to deal with the Mongols, though. Meanwhile, the Christians have, 3 cards left. They've gotten, a better proportion, and they've been holding on to cards because they didn't have siege cards to play in some of these long siege event draws. And we're nearly at the end. And this next thing that happened was kind of one of those, I've had it happen before, one of those rules that I'm not really sure I'm playing right. If you draw for a random siege event, you might get something that's a defender event. And this is what the Mongols did. That comes with a draw replacement card. I give that replacement card to the guy who didn't draw it. Whether or not you're supposed to get a replacement card when you draw these randoms, I'm not even sure whether anybody's supposed to. But it's kind of cute and adds to some of the randomness. That extra card gave the Muslims an extra action, which they were able to use to bring Baybars up fully. They had gotten him to here to attack the Mongols. Now the Mongols withdrew from here. I assume this is a Mamluk castle. I ran out of their castles, actually. They attacked here and failed withdrawal, ended up destroying the Mongol army. They actually then had too few troops to get a good roll on this, so they went back to Antioch, grabbed the garrison there, moved back here, called for surrender, got the surrender, moved to Aleppo, called for surrender. I think they only needed a 4 there. They didn't get it, and in fact that moves this up. They've got a siege underway that doesn't matter. They don't have the cards for it. But I do have one more action, which is I'm going to try to get some Mongols, a cav army into place to make an attack, or maybe a call for surrender or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. Well, I made a relief attempt, but it was stupid. There was nothing they could do. I mean, they couldn't get a limited castle to surrender, a reduced castle. They couldn't possibly win this battle. It was just a waste of effort, no matter how you look at it. Anyway, that's it, and it was very clearly a Muslim victory. I've got them up at 57 points, the Christians down to 16. Part of me really wants to say, the hell with the last one. But I'm close enough, and it only takes about a day to do one of these for me. Really, the game itself takes about two hours probably playing straight through. It's just, I never get to do that. I break it up around my work and take lots of breaks between plays, sometimes even in a single turn. Alright, well that's this one. I guess I'll load this up. What can I say about this one? I think this one sucks, to tell you the truth, because the big event is the Crusade, and it never happens. I think, it's cool to have these kind of scenarios thrown in here, but this one is particularly luck-based. It's possible the Christian player will have, let me see, is that a mandatory event? It is not a mandatory event, so it's possible that the Crusade will not get diverted. But, that 5 points you get off of it as a compensation ain't anything. And maybe even if the Crusade happens, Baybars is just too tough to deal with. But at least it would be nice to have some troops and be able to play and actually fight this one out. as it stands, it strikes me that there's just too good a chance. I think you're going to be going through the deck fully once, which means there's a 50% chance the Muslim player gets this card and gets to play it essentially, although there's a slight reduction because there's the card that takes a card away from you and stuff like that. The other side of it is, well, even so, you're going to go through more than once, but probably not twice. So it's probably close to say, I don't know, I'd say somewhere between 65 and 70% chance that the Crusade's going to get diverted. And it's not terribly fun to play as the Christians, or as the Muslims for that matter, without that. Of course, you have to kind of get both the problems, both, although it's very likely, I think the other one is this Mamluk alliance with the Golden Horde. So if this doesn't come out, basically both of them coming out, which is the historical result, really handcuff the Christian player. I'm kind of glad I got the historical. So I think there's actually a little bit more interest here than I thought, than I initially started to state. I've seen the historical essentially here, and it's ugly. But if you play it out and the odds fall more favorably to the Christians, and I don't think they're unlikely to fall somewhat more favorably, either the Mongols become somewhat of a presence for a while, or the Crusade shows up, or whatever. I think it can be a more interesting game than it was this time, so I guess I spoke too quickly. Anyway, I'll set up the last one. I want to do something else, but I don't want to remove this because there is a certain setup cost to this sucker in terms of sorting. Now, I've got everything sorted in counter trace, but in terms of, if I pile everything of a nation into a tray, it becomes kind of difficult to find some of this stuff. So it's probably best just to play through this rather than start something else yet, and then move on to other things later.